Welcome to another edition of our StaySmart Newsletter and podcast, brought to you by Viciniti Corporate Housing. We try to keep you updated on what we see happening in the industry, whether that's corporate housing, business travel, Airbnb, anything that we think might be relevant to you and to your company. It's kind of a gray, overcast day here in Kansas City. Kind of seems like fall, and we got football starting now, so it's definitely the fall-like weather. So our first article this week is really kind of big news in the corporate housing segment. So last month, Silverdoor and Synergy announced they were merging the two companies. So Silverdoor is a London-based agency, service accommodation provider. Synergy Corporate Housing, now based in Houston, Texas. They had relocated from California to Houston recently. They announced their merger that will finalize in early 2026. It's a huge merger. We've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in the last several years. This is by far one of the biggest since probably back the Oakwood days when Oakwood had acquired ExecuStay from Marriott. So this is really a big change in the landscape of corporate housing. So they'll be operating under the Silverdoor name, and they'll be utilizing Synergy by Silverdoor for corporate housing accommodations. Combining the two companies, there'll be about 450 employees based out of London. Really interesting to see how that's going to work out. There's two really big companies in the corporate housing space moving forward together. And the next article we have is National Corporate Housing announced their opening of a Brazil office, São Paulo, Brazil, which is kind of timely. The Kansas City Chiefs were playing the Chargers in São Paulo, so National Corporate Housing has been growing, and this is further expansion into Latin America. Brazil is a big market in South America and São Paulo. There's a lot of things going on there, and like the previous article we talked about with Silverdoor and Synergy, we're just seeing more of a global perspective to corporate housing. So congratulations to National on their new office. And then in the hotel segment, we have an article. CoStar put out some information on really just flat revenue. They're projecting flat revenue for hotels for the rest of the year. Zero revenue growth, basically, in the hotel segment. Not really surprising. A lot of things that they talk about there, high cost from inflation, high interest rates, kind of a lot of uncertainty, the job market. So they're really looking at zero revenue growth. I think they were showing 0.1% decline in RevPAR. There's a lot of different things out there. In one of these podcasts, we had talked about GBTA survey, and theirs was much more positive on the business side. This was both corporate and leisure, but again, you see a lot of different articles with kind of differing opinions. I do think there's just a lot of uncertainty, and so kind of flat projection for the rest of the year sounds about right. They do project a 0.8% RevPAR growth next year, but again, let's see what next year. Let's get there and see what that looks like. And then finally, kind of some really big news from the short-term rental space. Airbnb announced a new pricing structure. It's going to be kind of a simple fee structure where they are moving the fee back to the host. So property managers will be paying the 15% fee instead of kind of a split between the guest and the host. This is Airbnb's approach of more transparency and pricing. Definitely a lot of pushback from the host community. It'll be interesting to see if hosts just raise their price to kind of offset that cost. That's what I think. I think this is a little bit overblown. There's a lot of pushback from the host community, but I do think Airbnb is trying to be a little bit more guest-centric with this change, which I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think hosts just need to accommodate that, and if that 15% doesn't work for them, then they need to figure out how to acquire customers of their own at a cheaper cost. So interesting information about Airbnb and their new pricing structure. So those are the articles that we had this week. If there's anything that you'd like to hear us talk about, but otherwise, that's what I see transitioning this week. Take care, everyone.